Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Dave?
Lionel.
Check.
I hear you loud and clear. You hear me?
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Let's not forget we're on the free channel.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, my friend.
Yeah. You like being on the free channel.
I do. I think I like reaching lots of people.
Yeah. It's I'm kind of torn one way or the other because we have almost 300 subscribers on our Patreon channel and or 270 something or whatever it is. And you do a clinic and 270 people show up, you'd be like ecstatic. You would have paid your hotel bill and your convention bill and all that stuff and everything. You would have blown maybe $1,000 on the weekend. But if you had more than 200 people at your clinic, you'd be ecstatic.
It's a good crowd. Yeah.
So therefore, I feel like Patreon is, if we got 230 people in the room that all want to have a party together about the same subject, that's a good party.
I think it's a good party. I think it's a great crowd.
Yeah. So while Patreon numbers don't exceed the free channel numbers, I still think they're very important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the important thing about the Patreon, and your channel's great for this, is that you're investing in the whole idea, not just the Patreon account, right? Or just the Patreon channel, but the Patreon payments, that the network of people that work together to add a little bit of money a month to the AML, they're enabling maintenance of the equipment. They're enabling some trips. They're enabling some parties. They're enabling gatherings. It's more than just a closed network. It actually pays dividends for the whole nation, for everybody in the AML.
And probably same as you with your little Patreon channel, you find it's enthusiasm. You find that people that are willing to sign up, and it makes you enthusiastic. It makes you want to do something.
It makes you want to do something nice, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, and you and I are both pushed the same way. Like it's about finding ways to improve what you're putting out there into the world, whatever it might be. And boy, we'll talk a little bit tonight about some things that are. It's just this is living the dream, my friend. This is some of the best stuff I've ever been through, and some of the most frustrating stuff I've been through. And it seems it's. My wife laughs and says, "Dave, it's like you're a bridge. Like being an Abeles is like a bridge. You're bridging the gap between, bright and dark, enthusiasm and misery, optimism and pessimism, left and right, up and down, working and not working. Like you're carrying the load of the whole weight." She's like, "I don't know how you do it." I said, "I don't know how I do it either, but I'm telling you, my energy is I think I'm running in the red. I'm in run 8, and I think that's the way to put it."
Well, yeah, I've said to you a couple of times, perhaps maybe just move over to the middle lane and back it off, 5 or 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, I do that, and then you get an opportunity like a book offer. I'm excited to talk about the New Yard book, which I'm looking at right here. I'm excited to talk about the latest heritage unit at NJ Transit, our Conrail 4208, which came out beautifully. Things look, these are the good things. There are great things going on, and so because I'm at run 8 with hard things. Yeah, I back off those a little bit, but then you fill that energy with good things to balance it, and you're still in run 8. It's a hard balance, my friend. It really is. And I don't know. I'm not that I'm telling you something you don't already know. It's an adventure. Every day is an adventure.
Do you know Mark Glucksman?
Yes.
I'd like to get him on the podcast.
Oh, he's a character. We'd have fun.
Oh, would we?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because he takes spectacular photos.
He's a top shelf photographer, and he gets around a lot too. His line of work allows him to do a lot of traveling, and he's one of those guys that'll ask for what he wants, and he gets a lot of opportunities, and he delivers shot and shot again. But he's always the kind of guy too. You run into him at an event, And he'll say, "Hey, Dave, you want a picture of you with your kids? Here, I'll take a few from my camera. Give me your camera. Give me your phone." And he'll give you a few photographs. He'll
Right.
give me a few photographs of me and my kids, which means the world to me. I mean,
Well,
that's such a
sure.
nice, generous thing to do because as a photographer myself, I'm shooting other people. I don't think often to get one with me and the kids.
Right.
Mark's always one of the guys that's like, no, you get in there, which is I've always appreciated that about him. He's always been very inclusive of my kids, and some of their enthusiasm I think is from being included with things like that. So,
Who,
yeah, that would be fun.
who took the photo of you and the family in front of 4208?
A couple different people. Russell Sullivan being one at NJ Transit. He's another New Jersey area rail fan, and actually a transit employee himself. He works in the customer communications department, and is a gifted photographer. Amazing. It's fun to talk to the whiz, Rich Wisniewski, about the contributions that those guys have made to the rail fan photography hobby.
Do you think any of them have ever taken any photos of Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun?
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
I don't think they have, but I have.
Oh, there you go. You've been in the videos. You've done it all, man.
Oh, it's so much fun to be able to contribute like this and to be involved with this stuff. I mean, Jason, I was back and forth with him early on in getting to know him, Jason Schron of Rapido Trains.
Right.
And his personality to me embodies a lot of what's positive about the hobby. I think he's a honest guy. I think he's a straightforward guy. He's zany, wacky, just like a lot of us are. And therefore, I think it's a natural, Rapido and the Onondaga Cutoff, I think it's a very natural alliance.
Yeah.
And it just as far as our passion for what we do and how we accomplish it. And when you got to do something better, Jason will tell you, yeah, that model wasn't very good. And I'm like, man, that's one of your models. You can't say that. He's like, no, it wasn't very good. Or he'll say even stronger. And it's like, wow. I mean, that's honesty.
Yeah.
And he'll be the first one on trainorders.com or on Facebook to say, yep, the factory dropped the ball with this, or we didn't see this coming and the factory did this and we thought it should be that. Please call customer service. We'll make good on it. And I love that aspect of what Rapido does. I think that it's easy to make things better when you are honest about what needs to be better.
Right.
And what you're looking for. So, I mean, to be able to have Rapido's models, I mean, the B36-7, the Conrail E8s have landed. Mine are in the mail as of tomorrow from my local retailer. And I can't wait to see those. And the upcoming C30-7s, the C36-7s. I mean, it gets better and better and better. And Rapido's at the cutting edge of that. We're right out in front.
I'm looking at this picture by Mark Glucksman of the Erie 4210.
Mm-hmm.
What a fantastic engine that is. That's like...
I'm glad you like it. Our chief mechanical officer, which in NJ Transit world is called the Deputy General Manager of Mechanical. He loves the Erie, and he was a champion of that concept in our committee that figures out how we're going to do this and how we're going to put it together and how we're going to come up with the graphics, etc. And a lot of volunteer hours. And boy, that one pops. That one taught us that we could do complicated paint schemes.
Yeah,
that's all paint. Everything on that engine is paint. There's no decals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. It was amazing to watch the guys do their thing.
So I noticed like that one is 4210. The Conrail one is 4208.
Yep.
So what are the other numbers?
We have the two wraps are 4636 and 4519. That's the PRR and the Erie Lackawanna.
Right.
Those are the two wraps that came out for the first family day for the railroad's 40th anniversary in 2019. Or excuse me, the company's 40th anniversary in 2019. And those and the CNJ 4109 were the first three heritage units.
Right.
So 4109 was the first GP40 we did. That was one where we took a chance. You know, we had the engine in an internal rebuild program at Transit, so it had to get painted anyway. And the chief mechanical officer at the time, who predated the guy that's there now, was like, well, yeah, I bet you the guys at Hoboken can paint an engine. We've painted some cars. We'll try an engine. So they took a chance.
Right.
And so we were able to guide that to fruition. And it was a huge hit. I mean, it to the point where it was easily the most exciting thing that you'd see on social media about NJ Transit was this 4109. It was run for the last CNJ employees' last day. It led the Santa train and the Railmen for Children donation train. So it's become sort of a flagship locomotive. And it was popular enough, on the railroad you go until somebody tells you no. We had other GP40s in the rebuild program. And so the next one up the pike was the 4101. And that was the DOT paint job. That went great. That taught us we could do the long stripes and multiple color paint job. So that was the United Railway Historical Society was very important in that process for coming up with the right color blue, which worked out great.
No,
and then 40.
What's it called again?
United Railway Historical Society, the URHS.
That's a very mysterious place.
It is a mysterious place. They accomplish quite a bit with very little.
And you got to help me get that guy. Like I talked to that guy once. He was like, yeah, I'll be on the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's Kevin. Kevin's great. When you're with Kevin, you are the most important thing, and he will talk to you, and it's great. But Kevin invests like that in everybody he talks to. And he's personally involved in running this Hudson River Rail excursion like we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And the result is that Kevin's hard to track down, but I will remind him.
Yeah. The Conrail one was my idea. I remember bugging you about doing a Conrail locomotive.
Your idea. You keep saying it's your idea.
It was my idea. Because I was bugging you and Rich about it way early on. Oh, and can you ask Rich, can you do me a favor and ask Rich a question?
I think I know where you're going with this, and I think the answer is no.
The next time he comes on, can he give me a financial breakdown?
No. I knew it. My crystal ball's getting better.
I'm sorry, Rich. I'll be rich.
No, the 4210, the whole idea, but I wanted to make sure we honored the original railroads early, and everybody agreed with that. I mean, that was that sentiment. Rich and I were the first two to kind of push this thing, and we would love to have done Penn Central, but Penn Central was the second railroad, right? Like Pennsylvania was the original railroad, and the general manager at the time was a Pennsylvania Railroad hiree.
Right.
Erie Lackawanna was a direct predecessor, but it basically allowed us to incorporate all the northern lines in one paint job. And then the only one that's left out of there was the Central Railroad of New Jersey, the CNJ. So that's where the GP40 idea came, 4109. And then as it's grown, it's awesome to honor other railroads that are part of the story. And Conrail, arguably, if you wanted to do a transit heritage unit, Conrail was the direct predecessor for passenger train operations in New Jersey. It's little known, sort of weird corner of Conrail history that Conrail ran commuter trains from 1976 until the early 80s.
Yeah, you've told me that
Conrail
before.
crews.
Yeah.
Conrail conductor hats. You see this classic, Erie or New York Central looking uniform, except that it's got a Conrail logo on it, and you think it's something out of a fantasy of the Onondaga Cutoff. But instead, it's actually real. It actually happened.
We need to learn how to be able to tell the future, because can you imagine in the 80s, once Conrail was born and it had been going for 5 or 6, I mean, I can remember in the late 80s knowing what Conrail was, but not putting any significance on it. And then there you are 30, 35 years later, and it's like one of the railroads people love to model because it has so much character.
It has a lot of character. It touched a lot of people's lives, but it also is part of a really hard era. We've talked about that before too. A lot of people sacrificed a lot for Conrail to become a viable company. And sadly, that meant, selling the railroad lines. It meant eliminating trackage and, having people retire early and a bunch of difficult pains that were necessary to pare things down to the point where the company was able to make money. And it's a fascinating story. The saga of it to me is one of the more amazing corporate adventure stories in American history. It really is spectacular.
Well, it was done at a time too when there was less restrictions and people could be more creative with their capitalism.
I agree. Good call. Yep.
That's
that's an excellent point. There's no question about it.
Successful capitalism needs some creation.
Well, it involves change, and I don't like change. I'm learning that I'm somebody that doesn't like change. If I know where there's a great burger, I'm going to go back to the place where there was a great burger. I don't need to find a new place for a great burger around here. I know where the good burgers are.
Yeah.
Right. If I have a good operating session, I'm happy about that. I want to do it again.
Right.
I love going to see some of the same things again and again and learning more about it, spending more time there. I like where furniture goes. I don't want new furniture. I don't want new things. I don't want, I like my stuff that I can work with, my stuff that I'm familiar with. And thankfully, my wife knows when to push and where to push, and over my objections, we'll make sure that we make investments that are good for the family. So I'm very grateful for the balance that she brings to the equation, because without her, things would be a lot less balanced.
Let me give you a little, let me give you a little advice, marriage advice, Dave, if I may.
You can tell me whatever you'd like.
Okay. When it comes to furniture, you don't have any say. You don't have any decisions to make. You don't even own the furniture. Just nod and smile. So
there would have been a lot less energy expended if I had done that, because it turned out great.
Yeah. You don't need to have any interest in furniture, Dave. There's people there for you to do that. You don't need to be involved in the furniture decisions.
That is good advice.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you're going shopping for a fridge, she'll be interested in your input. You can occasionally say, "Oh, I like this one maybe a little bit better than that one." But at the end of the day, when she goes, "Well, what do you think of this one? I think I like that one." You just nod and go, "Yeah, I like that one too."
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm so good at that.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me. Trust me. That will pay off long after I'm gone. That will pay huge dividends.
We plotted the right course, and eventually that's where we landed, and it was the right thing to land on. So it's good advice.
Here's how furniture works. So my wife had a girlfriend coming from Florida, and our couch and our chair are literally 30 years old. They're the original ones when we built the house in the living room. And so then she says, "I'd like to get new furniture." Sure. So we go down to a couple of stores, and she finds something she likes. She says, "What do you think about this one?" And I'm like, the only thing I'm thinking while I'm doing it is this one comfortable? Is this one not? Well, that one's comfortable. Oh, I like this one. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. She goes around. Finally, she picks out what she's going to get. And she even picked out a chair that I liked for me to sit in, and blah, blah, blah. So we do the whole thing. And I said, cost is no object. Whatever you want, you get what you want. Blah, blah, blah. It's been 30 years. And we pick it out, and it's going to be delivered, the week. Oh, sure, it'll be on the truck. Blah, 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 blah. Well, it comes along, and we're only going to get half the furniture before her girlfriend shows up. So I come home, and I'm like, I can see the tears are not that far away. And I said, she tells me the whole story, and she's only going to get half the furniture, and they're giving her a hard time, and this and that and the next thing. And I said, well, probably you'd be just as happy if you didn't get any furniture. And she says, well, they said they can't cancel a contract. We can't cancel a contract because we're getting half the furniture. And that's where I step in. That's where you step in, Dave.
That's right. Well,
up until that point, you're just nodding your head and going along with it.
Well,
when trouble comes, that's when you ride into town.
And the trouble, though, is that what was ordered was considerably larger than what we really had room for. That was the challenge this time around. It's like, that's going to fit where? And sure enough, it didn't fit.
All right.
So we reorganized the room and actually came up with a setup that I think and this is where Kristen was right, is that she made, lemonade out of a lemon. Beautiful piece of furniture, just too big for our house.
Sure.
But by reorganizing things and putting the couch on a bit of an angle, it really did open up it's a much more welcoming look to the room than it was before. And I never would have seen that coming. That was all her ability to kind of take something and work with it once it was in hand.
Right.
And so that kind of back and forth. And you're right. I mean, in the end, I got enough battles to fight in the basement.
Just sit in it.
Yeah, right. And it's wonderful. It's a very nice couch.
Exactly.
It's beautiful. I'll include a photo of it when I send you a picture of me with the new book.
There you go. Okay, yeah. When did you finally get the book?
I finally got the book this week.
Is there any photos of Rapido trains in it?
Your fast track to model railroading fun?
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
As a matter of fact, there's a lot of, this day and age, if you don't have Rapido trains on your model railroad, you're missing opportunities.
Exactly.
They're making something for everybody at this point, and everybody's, it's too much money. Guys, this is like the people that are complaining about photo backdrop. Oh, I don't need a photo backdrop. The only people that say I don't need a photo backdrop are people that are jealous that they've already built their layout and didn't include a photo backdrop. It's the facts are the facts. You look at some of Rapido's products today, and they're necessary models for the era and the prototype that you're handling. So just you need to get a couple of them and stop worrying about it. It's the right thing to do.
I have a question about the what do you call it? The heritage units.
Yes.
Before we leave the heritage units, I have a question. I think it's a kind of a deep thought.
Okay.
What is the tone in the? I know you can't tell me internal things, Rich. I understand that, Rich. What is the tone of the company? Like, do you get a sense that, gee, this is really cool. I'm glad we're glad we did this because this is kind of cool.
I think we do get that sentiment, and I think that the support of the people at the top of the company, Kevin Corbett, the president, and Jim Sincoglia, the current general manager, their support is the reason it continues. I mean, if on the railroad, the most effective word is no, because the railroad's been around for a long time. Most of what it does is fairly well defined, and it works pretty well. So changing it has ramifications, right? Changing anything, whether it's adding something or taking something away or a new service, or all of those things have ramifications. So we say no a lot. That's how we're wired. So people will say no when they need to say no. But because Kevin Corbett, who's such an amazing supporter of enthusiasm and some of the good things that transit does, he loves this sort of initiative where there's volunteerism, there's buy-in, it bridges gaps in the company. I think it plays off of his experience in the Navy that had a lot of pride. He was a merchant Marine before he came over to the engineering consulting world. And the passion and pride that goes into this heritage program is evident. And it's evident, I think, in a time for the company where a lot of other things are very challenging. When you're doing big capital projects, that money has to come from someplace. And where it comes from is sometimes going to be the operation. And so it's harder to maintain things that exist when you're making these big investments in new, exciting initiatives. And, Kevin allowing us to run this, to the point where Kevin and Jim invited the president of Conrail to the release for this, to the employee-only release of 4210, or 4208, I should say. We invited the Conrail executive management team, and they came. So we got to sit and hang out with them, and they loved the idea. And Kevin was so proud to be able to show how we did it, and it brings people together. So there's a lot of top level support for what we do with these, and even the social media guys they've been very clear. Like this, every time there's a new heritage locomotive release at Transit, it's our top social media post of the year. And the Conrail one, I believe, is at this point is the biggest social media success so far with NJ Transit. So it carries a lot of positive energy. And in a world where there's lots of things that you can find to drive you nuts, right? Lots of things to find that can be frustrating. To be able to be part of something as positive and as well done as 4208 is a wonderful, wonderful thing that's worth putting in late nights and extra effort.
Right. And I've asked you before, but exactly what's your involvement in this? As the building and stations guy.
Well, right, exactly. And that's the beauty of this whole Heritage Committee is that it's not a paid position. This is stuff that we do above and beyond our regular work. And Family Day, where we released it to the employees as a celebration, that's a Saturday, and it requires unions fund the whole thing. It's an employee-only event for employees and their families, and it's a coming together that's all volunteer effort, with the exception of the food that's bought by the unions, and the company kicks in a little bit of money as an employee picnic kind of event. But my involvement was Family Days existed for as long as the railroad has. And my involvement was on the Heritage Unit specifically, just being in the right place at the right time to suggest that NJ Transit do this as part of the celebration of the 40th anniversary of the company back in 2019. And I had the right crowd of people around me. I also had the right crowd of people not around me. And being there at the right place at the right time with just a couple key stakeholders, including a couple of people that saw the value of some positive energy like this, allowed us to run with the ball. And we got about a month to do all three of those Heritage Units, the first three. A month.
And I bet you, like, it's nothing you could ever really, like, the company could ever nail down unless they had somebody standing out on some station platforms. But I bet you just regular customers that are not rail enthusiasts but ride NJ Transit every day get a real kick out of seeing the different locomotives pull up.
It's something positive. It's something different. And, there's a lot of complainers out there too. But what this is that on the NJ Transit various complaint forums, every once in a while you do see an email. Wow, I didn't realize that we had restored one of these engines. This is cool looking. My dad worked for that railroad company, or my uncle worked for that railroad. And there is absolutely regular non-rail fan people that take note of this and appreciate it. And that's exciting.
Yeah, it really is. It's really cool. It's very, very cool that you guys have done it. And it's just a cool thing, I think. And it's they're done so well. That's the thing.
This one especially is we did the homework on the blue. We did the homework on the graphics. My good friend Paul Tupacheski here in New Jersey, who's a graphic guy on the side, he runs the Prime Mover Decal, a little side decal company that he does. But he helped us with the exact fonts. The colors are something that Russell Sullivan and I did a lot of research on online. The Conrail Historical Society has a database of stuff like this that they helped with as well. So we were able to, because again, Conrail changed over the years, and different fonts and exactly different alignments of letters and things like that, colors of number boards did change. And so it took a lot of homework to be able to get the 4208 correct in the paint scheme that it's in. But that railroad that engine was actually a former New York Central ordered, delivered under Penn Central. So it came in Penn Central paint. That was Penn Central 3191, became Conrail 3191, and ran through the late 80s, early 90s when it had a failure, and they put it in the deadline out there in Altoona. Well, Transit came shopping for new rebuilt locomotives for passenger trains, and Juniata, building on the success that they'd had with the 4109, said, "Hey, well, we can build you more of those." And so the negotiation happened, and as I understand it, they went out and selected 20 dead GP40s from the lines in Altoona, brought them into Juniata shops, stripped them down to the frame, they cut them in front of the rear truck bolster and welded in almost 3 feet of new frame, which is unheard of on a locomotive. They stretched the frame of a GP40 and then reassembled it with a new scratch-built long hood that looked like an SD45 with the canted fans in the back, the angled fans. and included a fourth fan up top, not just for the prime mover, but for the head end power, the HEP. And so these things went from straight GP40s to GP40PH for the head end power, passenger head end power, -2, because they came with -2 electricals, all new electrical systems, and then a B behind it. That's the 4200s. The 4100s are XCNJ GP40Ps. So those were built as GP40Ps and rebuilt to Juniata. The 4200s are actually stretched frame GP40s. So this 4208 was rebuilt in 1994, ironically the year the OC is modeled after. Its rebuild date from Juniata shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania is March of 1994. If 4208 had been delivered in Conrail paint, it would be painted like it is today. Exactly that paint job. The font is correct. The color blue is correct. The number boards are correct. The striping is correct. We are completely thrilled with the work that was done.
Well, you have to be. How can you not be?
I talk about living the dream, a dream come true. And this was just from being in the right place. Again, a lot of people are all riled up about, oh, well, you're a celebrity and you get to do things because you're a celebrity. Look, you do things because you decide to get involved in things. So, somebody in the stations department who's at a meeting about stations, who has a chance to bring up the idea for a heritage program, has nothing to do with anything besides the fact that you're in the right place at the right time to make a difference. It's attitude. It's an attitude that you bring and courage to speak up and make a suggestion.
Yeah.
And then back it up with action. Don't just talk, but do something about it.
Don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do.
Do it. And we did. And I never, ever would have imagined that some of my career highlights would be in the mechanical side of things. I never worked a day in my life in the mechanical department.
Well, it all adds to the fabric of Uncle Dave.
These guys have been very supportive of the ideas that we bring to the table and the effort and passion that we put into these ideas. So being able to work with Rich and Russ Sullivan and the whole mechanical department, and then outside volunteers and experts that are willing to contribute their knowledge or their stencils or their photographs to help us get it right. It's just the right group of people at the right time.
And one of the things you got to understand too, like I know you get frustrated with things and I know you get frustrated with life and work and stuff like that. But what you can't see is that a guy like Uncle Dave is what gets other people excited. Like maybe, okay, you weren't in there painting the locomotive, but the guy that's in charge of the guys that are painting the locomotive obviously had quite a bit of interaction with you, and your enthusiasm rubs off and makes other people enthusiastic. And it's like, that's when I know you get frustrated. The problem is, like I said, life is just a lunch pail job, and not every day is a bowl of cherries. Lots of days.
That's a fact. Yep.
Lots of days. If you got problems, that's a good thing. It means you're alive. There's only really 2 or 3 problems in the world that you really don't want to be part of. And everything else, you can just admit to yourself that you're alive.
Hey, I think it's good advice, and it is a lunch pail job. And most of the time, it's not going to be a grand slam day.
No,
but working through those days is how you get to the grand slam days. You got to keep trying to improve things. But boy, it's.
But you figure if you have a day where you laugh some, and you have a day on the same day you're disappointed some, and you have a day where you're worried about something, and you have a day where you laugh again, and you're unhappy maybe part of the day because of something, that's a good day. That's a full day right there. Using all those emotions in a 24-hour period. That's a full day. So even though things aren't necessarily going your way at a particular time, that's just part of your full day.
I'm with you. I agree.
All right. This is a cool picture that Mark, we got to get this guy on the podcast. Holy mackerel. He took a really cool one of 4210 at the Hillsdale station. Is that where it is?
Yeah. Yep. Old Erie station with an Erie locomotive. It's awesome.
And where's Hillsdale in comparison to where you are?
About an hour north and east.
Okay.
Yep, I think it's on the Pascack Valley line. Without looking at a map, I think that's where it is.
I know I've asked you that. I know
County.
I know I've asked you this question before, and I interrupted you there. I know I've asked this question before, but do every once in a while, when you're getting fed up at work and think, do you just like get on a train and ride it because you can say, well, I'm going out to check the stations on the such and such line?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, that pressure release valve for my personality is really important to be able to go out and at least do something physically that's gonna contribute. Find something that's wrong, call it in to get it fixed, or go out and observe something. Go out and see some employees doing a good job and say, "Hey, thanks for doing what you do. I appreciate it." That kind of face-to-face contact, I think, is very important for me and for the whole crew. So absolutely. Yeah, I regularly get out in the field, look at stations.
Could you ride on one of the locomotives if you wanted to, or is that a special deal where you got to get permission?
I actually can. Yeah. I can't drive any of the locomotives.
Well, no, you're not qualified.
Not qualified to do that, but I am allowed to ride on the head end. Yes.
Oh, cool. So have you had any thought of riding on the head end of the Erie one, the 4210 or the 4208?
Oh, absolutely. Haven't managed to do it yet, but I hope to be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That Erie one is beautiful. Well, so was the Conrail one.
I'm glad you like them.
Yeah, well, the Conrail one was my idea. And maybe you could ask Rich, just like when they did have the employee only day, how much did it cost the union to do that?
I don't know how much they invest in the food and stuff, but if they've always taken care of it for their membership. It's pretty awesome.
It's just that's Rich's corner. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Accounting with Uncle Rich. All right. What about this book? What's the dealio with this book?
Oh my God, I'm so excited about it. I actually think this book feels nicer in your hands, and I loved the Signal book. I thought that turned out great. There's very little I would change about that even now, but this Yard book is right there. It's even a little bit of a heavier cover paper. And the colors just pop off the page. They're dead nuts on. The contrast is beautiful. Nice glossy pages. Really nice layout with a couple different colored stripes that run through the book and patterns and things. And it's a nice continuity. Sort of a weathered look to the title, almost like a freight sign that you'd see in a freight yard. And I am thrilled with how it came out. It's I was chomping at the bit the last couple of weeks as I started to see people get it straight from Firecrown. And what happened was that Firecrown moved all of the warehousing to their central warehouse as my book was delivered. And so it ended up being part of the whole changeover in inventory from the Kalmbach filing system to the new system, which evidently is in Ohio. And so there was a much larger curve to sort of get things set and get things started. So there's the rollout right now, you can order it from Firecrown. It's available directly from them. If you order it from Amazon, it's a little cheaper, but you're going to have to wait a couple weeks until everything's up to date at the Amazon warehouse. So it's coming slowly but surely, but boy, hold it in your hands. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This is a book that we can all take something from as modelers and as people that are interested in the prototype.
And did you get a box of them, or you just get one so far?
I got the first 5, and there's 5 more coming next week.
Wow.
That's my little contract, author's copies. So I will have them for sale at Springfield. And if you buy one either at Springfield or before, I recommend doing it before because you'll get to look at it well ahead of time. But I'm happy to sign them if you bring them to Springfield. Bring them to the Onondaga Cutoff booth up there at the Amherst Railway Show, right? Or the hobby, what is it? Model Railroad Hobby Show?
The
Railroad Hobby Show?
Yeah, the Amherst Society Model Railroad Show, I think.
Yeah, I always get, I feel bad because John is always so particular about how you say it, right? And I always manage to get a word wrong. So, John, if you're listening to this, I apologize. But we all know it is Springfield, and it is a crossroads of model railroading. It's a great experience.
It's a crossroads of model railroading. So on the table that's going to be beside you this year, we're going to have Brad Williamson set up a T-track layout.
Cool.
So there'll be the 2 tables that we have for the podcast, and Brad will have a T-track layout going on the 3rd table, and that'll be your table.
Oh, it's exciting. Awesome.
It is called the Amherst Railroad Society Railroad Hobby Show.
The Railroad Hobby Show. That's right. Good. Well, I'm excited to be part of that as always. And I'm going to have 3 books. I'll have the signal book with me. I'll have my tribute to the prototype signals, the self-published book, and then I'm going to have the yard book available for sale. 3 books on the table this year.
That's going to be cool.
Oh man, I never would have dreamed this stuff up. It's amazing how things go.
So I'm not trying to make trouble or nothing, but can you help me figure out so that we can tell people right here on the air, when you go to trains.com, how do you find the books?
Ooh.
I found model railroads,
Let me just take a quick look.
I don't know where the books, I don't know why they don't make the books easier to find. Why can't they make the books easier to find? I'm looking at
They should.
Well,
and
sure.
That's why I think a lot of people just end up ordering from Amazon.
Well, and that's what I want to, if I ever get a chance to interview this Craig Fuller guy, that's my first question I want to ask him is, do you understand what you've undertaken here? Like, this is vastly important. There's a whole array of people throughout the world that are like, don't screw this up, man.
Look, we take our hobby very seriously here. And this is the flagship brand for whatever it was, 90 years. Yeah, I don't see any right off the homepage. I can't.
I don't. It's the same thing. They kept saying, well, send them a calendar link. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Calendar link. I'm not. What are you talking about? All right, we'll give up on that then. I wish it was easy to tell people, go to trains.com, go to such and such, and then boom, you can just buy your book right there. But I don't see books anywhere on here. ABCs of Model Railroading, maybe? Let me see. No. Trains Magazine books? I don't see books anywhere.
I think you have to go to the shop.
Oh, where's the shop?
Yep, that's it.
How do you get to the shop? They're way over on the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side, yep.
It says shop.
And then you go to books and DVDs.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so way over when you go to trains.com, way over on the right-hand side of the screen, right in the top right-hand corner is the word shop. That's where you go. Then you'll see books and DVDs.
That's it.
And then you'll get to Designing and Operating Yards by Uncle Dave. That actually says by Uncle Dave Abeles. In Designing and Operating Yards, Dave Abeles explains why prototype railroad yards exist and how they function. And he shows how to design and build railroad yards for a layout to represent prototype yards in both appearance and operation. Build a foundation by learning why yards and yard operation matter so much, and the foundation will serve you well into the future.
I mean, right below that, it says, goes well with freight yards by John Armstrong. And it's like, what? I'm still, I am incredulous, blown away that something I've written can even be mentioned in the same paragraph as that name. All of this is a dream come true. It's incredible. And I really genuinely appreciate your support, Lionel, and everybody listening. From me to you, thank you, because the fact that this stuff is resonating with people, that people are excited to pick it up, people are looking forward to it, it offers a tremendous amount of satisfaction. And that, as Lionel, as you said before, that kind of optimism fuels me to continue to do more.
Yeah, exactly.
It's exciting. And, this is a book that was going to be just 96 pages. It ended up being 112 pages. They let me expand it a little bit and
cool.
include a few more things. There are sidebars in this thing from industry professionals that you're not going to find anywhere else. It is 100% a new work when it comes to the sidebars. There's a couple things I did include from the original book that Andy Sperandeo had put together. Because some of the stuff that he put together was just brilliant and still is completely relevant today. So there's a few sidebars in there from him as well. But you've got sidebars about Hoboken Terminal written by the guy that designs the train schedules for Hoboken Terminal and has studied it. You've got a sidebar about Grand Junction on the Rio Grande in Colorado from a guy that helped design railroad yards as part of a consulting group for many years. You've got an entire sidebar by Doug Watts, who actually was a yard master and a train master for Conrail. You've got just sidebar by Ralph Heiss, who put together an entire sidebar from his personal collection of the whole operation of car floats and terminals on the water in North Jersey. So these are people that have written other books. There's a real expertise to some of the prototype information, and that's a new thing. There has not been a model railroad yard book that incorporates this level of prototype information for you to build on, for you to understand. Because with a yard, the concept is almost exactly the same. So really, really exciting stuff. And I think there's a lot in this book for everybody to take a look forward to.
Yeah. How long did it take you? So what should we say about this book? I'm just like, I haven't got my copy yet.
I'm really excited about it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's something that they've, that the physical product is just a good, sharp looking product. You'll notice a certain locomotive on the cover from Canadian National, which is a nod to someone that helped me very early on have the courage to go ahead and jump into another book project when I was already in Run 8. And so I appreciate your guidance on that, my friend. Thank you. Although CN Power is prototypical for the Onondaga Cutoff, it did run through Syracuse almost daily back in the 1990s. But I think what's exciting about the book is that not only does it look at the prototype stuff and have a bunch of model stuff from a bunch of the layouts that you guys all know and recognize, but it helps tie it all together. It talks about the basics, but it talks about what to do with the basics. It talks about why railroads pushed beyond that and how to incorporate those concepts even on the smallest model railroad. A yard does not have to be 15 or 20 or 50 or 100 tracks. A yard can be a couple tracks at the end of a branch line. And often that's what we end up modeling because that's what we can fit. That's what we can touch. This book talks about the small yards and how to make them effectively work. How the different ways the prototypes made those yards work. But then how some of those concepts can also be translated to the bigger world. If you go down to your local railroad and watch a train work in the yard, what are you seeing? What are you hearing on the radio? You see pictures on Facebook or on a video on YouTube about switching, what the hump, how does a hump operation work? Where they push the cars up over the mound, they cut them into pieces, they open the couplers, and the cars coast by gravity down to different tracks to be sorted. That whole concept. There's a bunch of photographs by Matt Van Hattem, who's the guy that used to do all the maps for Trains magazine. Matt now works for an engineering consultant, but in his work, he's taken thousands and thousands of quality railroad photographs. I've got a bunch of his photographs in the book that look at Bailey Yard in North Platte, Nebraska, biggest freight yard in the world. Well, Matt was in there for work and got a bunch of pictures that he's letting me use in the book. So you're going to see never before published photographs trackside in Bailey Yard in North Platte from just like 2 years ago.
How do you spell the yard name?
Bailey, Bailey.
Bailey. Bailey.
Yep.
As not Baylee.
Correct.
Like Bailey as in George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
There you go.
Well done.
So I've often wondered, like guys like you that write these big fancy books about yard design and how to fit it into your model railroad, like what were some of the stumbling blocks? Because pretty much any prototype yard won't work on a model railroad unless you're Todd Treaster and you've got, your entire basement full of N scale. There's not many yards in HO scale and up that you can fit onto a model railroad. So what was your like how did you even, where did you know to even start?
Well, one of the things that helped me get started on it is opening myself up to other layouts around, getting out there, going to some of the RPMs, working on getting to know some of the guys that have an operating railroad, and also some trial and tribulation of my own, looking at actual prototype yard maps, figuring out when I'm riding the train to work, how some of the little local yards that I go by are put together, how the track is laid out, which way do the crossovers go. So, whether or not your yard is a mile long or a couple 100 feet long, on the prototype, it's still got ladder tracks at both ends. It's still got multiple tracks that are used for different things. And so that concept is very foundational. Multiple tracks that are used to sort cars or store cars, and it just depends on the specific use of the yard. There's yards that are used to load a train, right? They're loading tracks in a yard. But there's also classification yards or car float yards or passenger yards where they store passenger cars and service them for the next turn. All of that stuff is stuff that's woven in. But the way I started it is the way I started all of this, and that's with the prototype. There are examples out there. Yes, Todd Zanola Yard is one of the more spectacular things I've seen in model railroading. It's an adventure. But you go to these huge layouts, and there is almost always a big yard. But the OC, as far as big layouts go, it's not a huge layout. There's definitely far larger layouts that are relatively common around the country. But what we've done is create a yard that works. Onondaga works for what we're trying to do for it. And that's the next level that I think you get to as you go through this book, is how can you draw out prototype concepts that can work in the space you have available? Learning how to compress that is really, really important. But the way I started it, again, it's operating, it's taking photographs of the prototype and doing just some interesting research on how some of these ideas play out. It's amazing. It's amazing what's out there anymore, what you're able to Google or go to the library and download, and you can really get into the nitty gritty pretty quickly.
And so did you, say, for example, you wanted to, did you break it down into 3 sizes, small, medium, and large? Or what was your priority? What was the priority that you were trying to get across for this book?
Well, I think the priority is that regardless of what you've got in your mind, there's an application that works for your railroad, right? So we go through the freight yard, the history and the development in the first chapter, and look at some prototype facilities as well as some of the more common model, more famous, I should say, modeled yards like Tony Custer's yard in Frankfort, Indiana. But we also look, as we get a little further on, we look at, waterfront or terminal yards, interchange yards, and how those effectively are a terminal for one railroad, even if it's not a terminal for another. So, for example, across from the Station Inn in Crescent, Pennsylvania, R.J. Corman comes down from their branch line, and they terminate trains in Crescent. But it's just a spot on the NS where NS can pick up or drop off trains. So NS doesn't think of Crescent as a terminal, not for freight, but R.J. Corman does. And so there's an example of where you have a little isolated terminal operation. How does R.J. Corman do that? Well, we talk about that. You look at some of the stuff in the 1950s, and that's where Ralph Heiss's collection became so important. But then we go further and we look at how some of that stuff is actually modeled. So there's another whole sidebar by Matt Thompson about how he looks at different yards on the layouts he's built. We have a whole chapter on the classification yards, including hump yards and flat switching yards. There's also freight terminals, engine terminals. We talk about block exchange. Sammy Carlisle, a friend of mine that models the Santa Fe in 1994, does a whole sidebar on how modern railroad yards exchange blocks of cars instead of certain cars. We have track diagrams from some of the best-known modelers in the hobby, like Bill Darnaby and Perry Squire, Tony Custer, of course, and some of the research Perry did to build his railroad. I really put a lot of emphasis on featuring Perry's work in this book because I haven't seen a lot of it in print, and certainly not recently. And it's a world-class layout. It really does a nice job of conveying north central Pennsylvania and the 1920s, which is pretty fascinating. But one of the challenges that I was put to with this project, I should say, is to make sure that it had a lot of modern relevance. And so in addition to the blocking operations, we look at later chapters car forwarding, model railroad staging yards. Staging is becoming a more and more important part of model railroading because of operations. I wanted to make sure that we looked at modeling maintenance areas. How do you model locomotive service terminals? How do you model, engine terminals? What's the best way to lay some of that stuff out? And then we have some basics that look at how you get started, how you design it. We look at Tom Schmieder's layout construction, which is fantastic. He's building an incredible Lackawanna layout. And that effort's continuing along as he installs all these Swiss machines in his staging yard. But he actually printed out his track plan in full scale, huge pieces of paper. We laid it out on the floor of the basement. There's a photograph in the book that shows how that looks and how we were using it to determine aisle width and things like that, looking at the design for Tom's Railroad. So there's a lot of local examples of how we were able to tie a lot of that together. And then I think my favorite chapter, which is probably not surprising, is the last one. And that's the one that really talks about, the camaraderie of the yard, a last look at yards, yard masters and how they set the pace for operations. But a last look at yards, a final look at yards, the last chapter, chapter 10. It's got a picture of very happy Tom Schmieder at work at the La Mesa Club layout, the Bakersfield yard. But it's a few paragraphs, in my opinion, that tie everything together and leave us on a path to the coming together that a yard is. There's no better place to see the full gauntlet, the full cross section of the culture of a railroad than one of its yards. Even a small or mid-sized yard, of course, it's got cars for storage. It's got cars for classification. Usually has a little place where they maintain locomotives, even if it's very informal. But that maintenance aspect is the mechanical department. The cars are the transportation department with the locomotives, and the track is infrastructure. But a yard usually has space for all three. So you can go to a railroad yard historically and find members of the different crafts that make trains move, that fix the trains, and that maintain the tracks the trains run on, all in the same spot. So there is no better spot to see the cross-section of a railroad's culture than a medium-sized yard. And it's still one of the tangible things. So many yards have a bridge over the top, and you can go sit there on the bridge and listen to a scanner and watch and see what happens. You can go to a grade crossing at one end of the yard or the other and just wait, watch and wonder and be curious and learn. And then you can go online and you could probably find a track diagram of your favorite yard online. You can go to a website and you could probably buy the equipment you're looking at or the equipment you're seeing in the photographs of your favorite yard from 1950 or 1927. The hobby is so tangible right now in so many different ways. And I think the conclusion that the book comes to is one that encourages us to go out and take advantage of that. It's the time has come for action in the hobby, and it's right there at your fingertips. You just have to go out and do it.
What kind of action?
Anything. Build something, operate something, or write something.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Like lately, I've been getting the itch to build some structures.
I heard a rumor about that. Yes.
And, I'm going to start, and I'm going to I even found a kit from Showcase Miniatures, and it's a tractor, a tandem axle tractor for pulling, and it's done in 3D printed. And I thought I'm going to buy that and in Florida and work on building that, because just building stuff is fun to do.
It's therapy. Is what it is. It's therapy. It's so satisfying to build a covered hopper kit today. I mean, it really is.
It is. And I'm not sure why, but it just is. I've been trying to think, and I'm thinking, I want to start building some stuff, And now
I think it's a great idea.
And now the beauty of that is, like, I'm looking at this kit and it has some white metal castings on it and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, I wonder how I glue that stuff. And I got a million people I can ask how to glue stuff together and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it'll be like falling off a bicycle. It'll be like, I'll remember to do it. It won't take that long until I'm right back at it.
I love it.
I got a whole pile of those DPM section. You remember those kits?
Yeah, the design preservation models.
Yeah, and I got a box full of, you know, the mod. They came with modules, like you could buy several sections of wall and several sections. So I thought I'd just glue them all together and make a building. See what happens. See what happens.
I mean, that's the fun of it all. And to me, there's the journey of that is as important as coming up with the building in the end. It really these are opportunities for us to do something that a lot of other people are doing. And it's like celebrating a holiday. Everybody else is celebrating a holiday too, you know?
Yeah.
To me, there's a lot of symbolism in that.
Is there Rapido trains in that?
Your fast track to model railroading fun?
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
You'll find pictures of Rapido trains on the cover of my book. You'll find pictures of Rapido trains throughout the new book. And their upcoming models it's just an exciting time. I'm going to have to add more staging tracks to my railroad to accommodate some of the stuff that Rapido's doing.
You don't have room for any more staging tracks.
I'm going to figure it out.
Cheers. 4 days ago. What, where? Lifelong wonder fulfilled right at home. Thanks to Lou Millen's text to Rich Winisky. We all ran up to Round Valley Reservoir for an hour. I haven't seen the Northern Light. Well, I have years ago. I should see him again. You don't post enough. You just don't post enough.
I post enough.
You don't. And then and you're like, here's some really cool train stuff. Ryan Corcoran is with Dave Abeles and 4 others, and it's Family Day.
Yep.
And it's it's 4 really cool pictures, 5 really cool pictures, but they're all on your personal page. You should be putting these pictures on your OC page as well.
I think cross-posting is something I can do a little more of. That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true. Yeah, there's that one picture of Ryan and I cleaning off the number boards on 4208 early in the morning on the Saturday of Family Day. I love that picture. That's probably one I got to get framed. Ryan is a guy who is he's a volunteer at the fire company down the road from my house. And turns out he loved trains. He was working for the tow truck company and was volunteering his time as a fireman. Lived with his mom a couple towns over. And I was wearing a Rio Grande hat at the firehouse one night. They had a little picnic and they invited the neighbors. So I went over there with the kids. And he says, "Oh, you like trains?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "Oh, I'm Ryan. I love trains too." And I said, "What do you do?" He's like, "Well, I work for the tow truck company." And so we, traded phone numbers and he came over to see the OC. He came to an operating session here. He had never been to any operating session before. So he enjoyed himself and had a good time, but he's a busy guy working a lot of nights and weekends, and texted me, I would say about 2 years ago, and said, "Hey, the company's growing here, but I would love to work for the railroad. Now, do you guys have any openings?" And I said, "Well, we always got openings. And what do you want to do?" "Well, I'm working. I'm just going to get my mechanic certificate, and I love working on diesel engines." I said, "Well, there's a lot of that here." And I got to talking to him a little bit more a couple other times. And sure enough, when I was working on the heritage locomotives early on, I mentioned, they mentioned to me that they're always hiring. There's always an opportunity for new people to come in. And so I told Ryan, I said, "Hey, give me your resume. I know the guys that manage that department. And when they're looking for people to hire, I'm sure we could help you get an interview. I mean, you got to earn your way in, of course. Everybody has to earn their way in, but giving a good quality person that is a volunteer, that can be on time, that's not into drugs or anything like that." And Ryan's a straight shooter. So sure enough, after a couple rounds, a couple of interviews, he did get an offer from Transit, and he works down at the NMC now. He works at the Meadows Maintenance Facility.
Oh, cool. Being a maintain guy that maintains locomotives and stuff.
Correct. Yep. Friendly guy. He's probably 24, 25 years old. And he's been scratch building some models lately. Loves kit bashing diesels. He has some Conrail stuff. He has some Transit stuff. But he's just another one of these guys that wants to do the right thing. And you can't have enough people like that on your team.
That's for sure. So what else do you have to tell me about the book? I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, well, we got to work on that.
We should give one. I think we should give one away to the first listener that listens to this particular podcast. Mail in. Tell us why you love having Dave's fireside chats, and if you're the first person to write in, and maybe the second person, you know what? We'll do it for the first 3 people. First 3 people to write in, and we'll get an autographed copy of Uncle Dave's book.
There you go.
And I'll even pay for it, Dave.
Wow. All right. This sounds great.
Yeah. So write in and tell us why you love Uncle Dave's fireside chats. And the first 3 people to write in good emails about that, we'll send you a signed copy of Uncle Dave's book, Designing and Operating Yards. Layout, Design, and Planning. Designing and Operating Yards. That's going to be a huge book for you. Is there a lot of track plans in it? Is there a lot of simple track plans in it?
There's some very good simple track plans in it. You'll find pieces of different yards that are featured in the book in other places. And some of Andy Sperandeo's articles actually not only show you the track plan for a small yard, but how to operate it. Andy, that is a guy I wish I met. We've talked about this before, but he really seems to have been a genuinely good human being and a nice, friendly guy that really appreciated model railroad operations.
He loved
really neat.
He loved model railroad operations, and he was always very respectful of my feelings. Actually, he did something really, really nice for me one day in front of other people, which I have always been thankful for. He was a gentleman. He was a gentleman, and he treated me very well. And it was a pleasure to know him. He was an interesting character, as so many people in model railroading are. But he was a very pleasant gentleman to be around.
He always seemed to be a very genuine kind of guy in his writing.
Yeah.
And I think that, that I'm still just amazed that was Eric White, the editor of Model Railroader, after the success of the Signal book, says, "Hey, so Dave, what's your, actually not even after the success, after the submission of the Signal book, before it even hit print, what's your next book?" And I'm like, "What?" "Well, we're looking for a couple different book ideas. In fact, Andy Sperandeo's yard book is showing some age, and Andy, of course, sadly is no longer around to do a second edition. So would you mind doing a yard book?" "What? You want me to do a yard book that Andy?" It's surreal, absolutely surreal. But here it is. It's you go to trains.com, you go over to the sale on the far right at the top bar, or shop, I should say, on the far right at the top, and then another page opens up. You click on books, and in the first row is Designing and Operating Yards. There it is. It's happening. And there's a picture of Onondaga Yard on the front cover with a Conrail B23-7 and a SD60F and Canadian National Consist running through, and the Conrail Yardmaster there helping get the train out of the yard. That kind of teamwork, where guys are helping each other, that's what makes model railroad operations like the prototype. It's also what makes all of this so compelling, is that you can't railroad by yourself. You can have fun with trains by yourself, but railroading requires more than one person. And that teamwork, I'm telling you, it is the secret to never getting bored with this hobby. It's so much fun. So many people are starting to realize that you can have a team of people help out. You can have a team of people come together, and you give them an idea. Here's how I want this to go. Let's work together to get there. There's a lot of people that are willing to help you find your goal, willing to help to work to get you there.
Well, and that's kind of the uniqueness of the hobby, because we were having that discussion on a viewer mail, because David Hyde has Bob help him with his electrical work, and Tom Jacobs has his friend Val that helps him with his electrical work and some of his stuff. And both Brad Williamson and I said, I could never in a million years have anybody work on my layout and create something that I didn't know how to fix.
Well, of course, learning how to fix it, you have to know how to fix it. So there's that. But that doesn't change the fact that you can have somebody help you do it.
No, that's for sure.
There's a lot of wiring to do. And, whether you know how to fix it or somebody else knows how to fix it, the bottom line is that once you've dropped the feeder, you drop the feeder. So if everybody can drop feeders, if you have 5 people dropping feeders on your track, you're going to get done a heck of a lot faster.
Sure, but you've always gone on with this "let experts be experts" thing, which
For sure.
which
Yep.
basically kind of annoys the crap out of me. But I always tolerate it. And but you always say "let experts be experts," and I always feel like you got all these guys working on your layout, and you kind of have no idea what's going on.
Oh, I disagree. It's why I have a functioning.
Well, that's why
layout
I'm at. That's why I'm asking you. That's why I'm asking you.
Like that's the only reason the OC is what it is because a lot of experts have put their hands on it. But that doesn't mean that I haven't fixed a bunch of solder joints that somebody else did.
No. Or so there's no part of the nobody's done programming or wiring for you that you don't feel like if you in a pinch you would be able to fix it on your own.
Oh yeah, you got to be able to fix it on. You have to because you're the only one that's going to be there for every operating session. Other people are going to come and go. You have to. You can't surrender the whole. It's not a club, right? You can't surrender the whole thing to somebody else. But you can't. I mean, I did all my track work myself. Nobody else laid track on this railroad. I'm very particular about track, and I would say that of the different parts of model railroading, track is one of the things that I have some expertise in. So I'm confident in that. But the electrical stuff, I'm not an electrician. I don't love wiring. So trusting other people to help pull wire was an important thing. I wish I had people here for more of that. But when I was building the layout, I didn't know anybody that knew how to do it. They're all right at my fingertips, and I didn't know they were here.
Well, that's the strangest part. But see,
It's still wild.
That's why you don't need to care about furniture because you have your track. Kristen has no interest in helping you with your track.
That's true.
So you can just.
I wish she would like to do some trees, but she doesn't even really want to do that. So
that's fine.
All right. You're right. So you let the furniture roll.
Yeah.
But I disagree.
It's like this is a golden rule you cannot break. When it comes to marriage, for the rest of your life, this is a golden rule. I wish I'd been there at the start of your marriage to help you out, but it's only 14 years in, so we might be able to save it. This is a golden rule that you never.
16 years.
16 years. This is a golden rule you never break about marriage. When she says to you she wants to do something in the bedroom, paint it, move the dresser, whatever, change the mirror, whatever it is, you just nod and go, "Oh yeah, sure, that looks great."
I agree with that.
No opinion in your bedroom. Zero opinion. You'd be happier if she didn't ask for your opinion. That's got to be your attitude.
Most of the time, that's how it goes.
Attaboy.
That's all right.
Absolutely.
But I disagree, man. Experts make the hobby better, and they're all right here.
Sure. Absolutely. I can see me, once I start building something, whatever it is I'm going to build, I can see me asking for lots of advice.
Right.
I always just thought you meant let your experts be experts, like you didn't need to know it if they knew it, which I don't agree with.
Yeah, you got to be able to maintain your railroad. There's nothing worse than going to an operating session and having it run like crap because it's not working right because somebody can't fix something. That's not fun. It's letting experts be experts doesn't mean not knowing how to repair what's yours. It means knowing that when your computer needs a reboot, you need to get the shop involved to take care of it. When your signal's not working, how do you reboot the system? You have to know how to do that. Right? But you also don't have to run every cable yourself. You don't have to do the programming all yourself. Do you need to know how to do it? Yeah, it's a good idea to know how to do it. But I'm going to argue that there are people that can do it better than you can in a lot of cases in whatever other parts of the hobby you don't want to do. If you love wiring, hey, have at it. Right? That's certainly fine. But if you don't love wiring and you want to get to running some trains, having somebody come over to help you run feeder cables is a great way to get it go quickly. And that's people, I don't know how you have so much time, Dave. Well, I have a lot of time because I let people help. And it makes a big, big difference when people want to help.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with people helping. I always thought you were with your let experts be experts. It was kind of like once they did it, you wouldn't really know what to. And I'm ask you for advice all the time. And
yeah, I think it's dangerous to not know how to fix things that people do for you.
Yeah, now we're making David Hyde feel bad because he doesn't know everything about his layout. So now I feel bad because David thinks I'm talking about him, and I'm not talking about you, David. Trust me.
He's got an operating layout too. He's doing something well. He's doing something right.
Oh, he's got a beautiful layout.
He's already there. So I think the whole let experts be experts idea applies differently depending on where you are. Where he is now, his right-hand guy does a lot of the electrical for him. That's fine. David can check to make sure wires are loose or not loose. And once it's run, it's easier to maintain. Like you can see it. It's tangible. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. What else can we talk about? What else do you want me to ask you questions about?
That's not how this works.
Well, I thought there was going to be more to talk about with this book. Well, I feel like I'm running out of. I feel like I run it because I don't have it in front of me, so I have to.
Oh, I know that's true. That's true.
And I have to rely on your ability, and I can't buy it online. I wonder if trains.com will go to having their books online because I think that would be very popular.
I think they do have a digital version.
Do they?
Definitely. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, you didn't tell me that. Thanks for the heads up. Well, thanks for the heads up.
Now, how do you do that? That's a question too.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I'd buy that in a minute because then it'd be like right here. I don't think there is a digital version. I think you're dreaming it.
Maybe it's not released yet. They're definitely doing a digital version because it's in the contract.
Oh, digital downloads, beginner layouts, modeling projects, scenery, scale modeling, track plans, books. It doesn't say there's a digital download.
I know you can get the digital signals book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think they actually scan it separately.
Yeah, I would think so.
And that's probably what hasn't happened yet.
Yep. It would be a process.
Well, and I know one of the challenges, again, is that where this book is right now is sitting in the warehouse in Ohio. So they're only just getting it at the Kalmbach, the new Kalmbach, Fire Crown offices in Wisconsin. That only happened last week. So they're probably scanning one of them there to be put online. Because again, I think there's a lot of curveballs with this whole merger. I mean, Fire Crown didn't do anything railroad oriented before this Kalmbach transaction. So Kalmbach's way of doing things was very specific to any company that's 90 years old. So it takes a lot of time to get everybody on the same page. I think after a major acquisition like that.
I think I'm the only guy that should have this Craig Fuller on a podcast and be interviewing him because I think I'm going to ask him the hard hitting questions of do you understand what you've gotten yourself into?
I think Ken Patterson said something along those lines in his little interview.
Did he?
But yeah, I think so. But I think there's the AML goes. It's a longer, more in depth discussion, as you've said before. So I think that'd be a great interview. I really do.
What Ken Patterson interview are you talking about?
He had Craig Fuller call in.
Oh, right.
At one point a while back. It was I think it was a video call.
It was the dude. He's the dude.
Yes.
He's the dude.
That's right.
All right. So everybody's sitting here with bated breath, and I've been kind of avoiding this subject for the last hour and 20 minutes. But I've never stopped thinking about Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Buying Rapido trains will make you happy.
So I know the question that's on everybody's mind. So I'm going to ask it. I wasn't going to ask it, but I think I will ask it because we might as well get this out in the open. It's the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm going to ask you?
No idea.
No, that's because it's...
I could guess.
Okay, take a guess because I'm interested in what you think.
On C-37As?
Not even close.
Yeah, see? So
everybody's wondering, what book is Dave going to write next?
Oh. I don't know. I've there's a couple ideas I'm cooking on, but nothing I'm sure of yet.
Do you want to write another book?
Yes.
Oh. That's much more definitive than After the Signal book.
Yeah, I think that
after the I'm going to interrupt you before you start your answer. After the Signal book, there was a lot of hand wringing, a lot of, geez, should I be doing this again? A lot of, I don't know what it is I want to do. This time, after the second book, yes. Emphatic. Boom.
Yep. Yep. I think it's another avenue to really explore a topic in depth. And I think that that's an important niche in the hobby that there's a lot of reason to be involved in that. It's a different way to get to know the philosophy of the hobby, and I think that that's a really important thing that hasn't been fully explored in my generation and younger yet. So I think there's an opportunity there.
To do what?
Sort of explore the philosophy of model railroading.
Okay.
And you could do that,
Well, that would be
my bent is operations, but starting with signals, going to yards. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to take railroading and explore, the meaning behind different aspects of it, why we do this stuff.
No, I'd love to.
Books are a good way to do that.
I'd love to do that. I think that'd be. I'm not sure how well that would sell, but I mean, I think that's what we've been doing on the podcast for 10 years is trying to understand the philosophy of this hobby.
I think so, and I think that this is why the book idea is so important. Is that it's not going to be an entire book about philosophy because
it wouldn't sell.
It wouldn't sell. I don't think it would be that compelling.
Although
looking at philosophy of yards, right? Philosophy of signals, philosophy of operations. Tony Custer's touched on a bunch of these things, but I think that there's room to go revisit some of those topics as time goes on.
Well, there's room to revisit every topic from the Dave Abeles aspect, from the Dave Abeles point of view. Because you have a refreshing approach to the entire hobby that it's not unique. Your approach to the hobby is not unique. Let's not give you more credit than you deserve.
No, I agree.
But it's refreshing, right? Your approach to the hobby is refreshing. It's except I'm meeting more and more people that are as enthusiastic. I think David Hyde is as enthusiastic about the hobby as you are. He does it in a different way. He's more reserved. But he won't wear T-shirts out in public. But you'll never see him wearing an AML T-shirt out in public, ever. It's like he's embarrassed or something. Actually,
no.
Actually, he's one of those polo shirt guys. But anyways, like I think that your approach to the hobby is completely. It's new. It's not unique. If that makes any sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense. All of this has been done before.
Or maybe let me finish. Let me try again. I interrupted you again. But maybe your approach to the hobby can be interesting for years to come because you're in this generation. There's never been anybody that had this much traction in the model railroad press that has, in this new generation of social media and ability to get material and make material. Like, I'm sure this book will sell just as well as the other book.
I certainly hope so. The more inertia behind it, the more likely that everything continues the way that it needs to. So I think it's an exciting time. I think my journey into the hobby is sort of cavalier. I think that there's a uniqueness to that. I don't think that my participation in it is that new at all, except for the opportunities presented to me because I work at NJ Transit.
Yeah, that's part of the magic.
That's part of the interesting, and that's all stuff that, I wish I could take credit for it, but none of it was what I envisioned ahead of time. It's all stuff that happened because of being in the right place at the right time and taking advantage of opportunities and trusting people that gave me good advice.
Well, and it's also an extension of your personality. Like your personality is fairly. Once you decide a thing is a certain way, it's pretty hard to dissuade you.
No, I check the box and move on. I don't dwell on it. Let's go.
Well, yeah, but I mean, your way. Sometimes it's your way or the highway.
Oh, for sure, of course.
But your approach or your view of the hobby is now refreshing and different. Because you're Dave Abeles, you're different. You've been raised on a whole different menu of vitamins from the age of 12. Your vision of the hobby is completely different from Tony Custer's, who's 30 years older than you. And
right, in a lot of ways, I think it's a much different hobby.
Yeah,
because of the fact that it's so much more interconnected now.
So how do you think the hobby's different now?
I think the access of anybody to talk to people that they're excited to meet, people whose work they look up to, um, authors or people who make videos or what have you, even the editors of the magazines. I mean, you used to have to stick a letter in the mail and then hope that you might get a response at some point. Today, you can go to any one of these magazines' websites and you can email the editor right now, and you'll probably have a reply in a couple days. I mean, it's amazing the access you've got to top tier talent and people, the movers and shakers, people that make it happen.
And one thing, go ahead.
That's a huge difference to me in the hobby, because now you have access to experts that you didn't necessarily have before. Like, letting an expert be an expert is only possible when you can reach the experts. Well, now you can.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? So do it. It's like all that's waiting to happen at this point is people to start the ball rolling. Buy yourself a locomotive and a couple cars and some track and get started.
Yeah, I mean, some people would balk at the price. I don't think it's unreasonably priced. But there's nothing simpler than hooking up the NCE power cab.
It's NCE is hands down the place to start if you want sound and lights on your locomotives. DCC is fun. It's simple. It's straightforward. There's all sorts of ways you can go with it. You can go with the layout command control later, or you can switch things up. But I'm very, very satisfied with my NCE system here on the Onondaga Cutoff.
Yeah, I think the difference for the hobby now is, as I think about starting to do something, little things like I'm thinking, how do you glue wood to plastic? And, I've done it all and built all sorts of structures, but I haven't really done much that way for the last several years, and certainly the last 10. And, it's like the beauty of it now is I don't have to remember how to do it. I can just, send you a text or send somebody else a text that I know has done it, and they'll tell me how to do it, and away you go. What to glue to get, and away you go. The hobby moved at such a slower pace before. And
I agree with that, and I think a lot of things did, right? But I think that there was also that gap between the movers and the shakers and everybody else was much larger, and I think today, with the right attitude and the right approach, right, where you're offering something that's interesting, you're enthusiastic, you're happy to be open to different opportunities. The whole RPM movement is just a huge open door that wasn't there 30 or 40 years ago. You can go talk to these people. You can go on the NMRA operations tours and operate a model railroad, usually a very good model railroad. You can do these are all things that it's an activity you can jump in and you can give it a try. And I think that's exciting. You've got, at that Bailey Yard in North Platte that we look at in the book, that's where they had that Golden Spike Tower, where Union Pacific Railroad opened a visitor center for people to go learn about how the yard works. Well, how cool is that? I mean, the railroad has a visitor center that never would have existed in the 80s or 90s.
Not even close.
They're inviting you in to look around. These are opportunities that anyone could take advantage of.
Yeah, I just don't see. I was having a discussion the other day with somebody, and they didn't see that the hobby was growing, and I'm like, I don't see how you can't see that the hobby's growing. I mean, I just think it's going to grow like crazy. What's this thing here? The Mohawks. I didn't know you had a steam locomotive on your layout.
Well, I have, but I was so excited by this news that the city of Elkhart, which owned that NYC 3001 for years, and it sat in static display in Elkhart in the New York Central Historical Society Park there. And it was recently basically part of a transaction where now it's going to be owned by the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society, who are the proud owners and operators of 765, nickel plate 765. And that's one of the only engines out there that is sort of at the cutting edge. There's even talk of eventually putting positive train control in there so that it can lead again on some of these main lines. but it's a very well maintained and popular and relatively large excursion locomotive. Even the possibility of having a New York Central 482 pulling trains is under its own power is just awesome. So I have the Mike's Train House model that I found on eBay a couple of years ago, looking for. I've always enjoyed steam engines. This one came across my feed, and I said, "Oh, I think it was $200 used or whatever." So I picked it up, and yes, it's MTH, and so there's lots of chagrin about MTH electronics, but for a standalone engine that you're not going to MU, it works just fine on DCC. And I had a ball with it, so I ran it around and figured I'd take a video of it and text it to Tom Schmieder and a few other people that I know love steam engines. And that video, it was like, this is months ago. But when the news was announced that the prototype 3001 is going to get resurrected, I was like, oh, I got to put that video on the OC page. And so I did.
How did your last live session go?
It went really well. Thank you. It's funny. Back in the days of the pandemic, I think that there was just a lot more people waiting around to see what would happen. A lot more people that were available on a random night to watch the Facebook Live. And I think that today there's a lot of activities out there. So I find a lot more views after the session than I used to. But we're still getting 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 watches for these videos. Yep. So very exciting. We'll definitely do one before the end of the year. And then we'll, head into the winter time, but it's exciting. And you find that you could do a Facebook Live for 20 minutes or half an hour from an OC session. It doesn't have to be the whole session, but you do 20 or 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and everybody loves to be part of it. It's one of these things where, again, it's a certain group of people that chime in and chat, and it's still a lot of fun to do. So I'm going to keep going on those as long as we can.
Well, you got it down pat pretty good now.
Yep. It's funny though. Like it does bring back memories. There was some really interesting special evenings, 2 or 3 months into the pandemic, April, May, June, when we started to do these, and everybody was still hammered down. Everything was still closed. Like it was really something to look forward to do one of these sessions.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
And do you feel like you still have the same enthusiasm, or it's a different kind of enthusiasm?
I think it's different because it's more integral now with the whole experience of the OC, which includes, there's been a lot of writing since 2020. There's been 2 books since 2020. It's a whole different level of intensity, I think, going forward. And rather than being the feature, the live shows are a complementary piece to the larger world of published material out there about the railroad and my approach to it. So it's definitely, it's still an important part. I think it's a fun interaction. It's a video interaction, and it's very off the cuff. So while there's a bunch of videos on trains.com and there's some YouTube stuff, there's plenty of videos on the Patreon channel for people that want to sign up and take a look. The Onondaga Cutoff Patreon channel is out there. All of those are produced videos, which are assembled and released as part of the experience as well. But the Facebook Live is 100% off the cuff. It's literally real time stream of thought kind of recording where you're seeing a piece of the operation, and that's a unique view into model railroading. I still think that there's a lot of value to it, especially with the intensity of an OC operating session. There's so many trains, so many people, right?
So many people. Too many people.
No, you got to have a lot of people around a big railroad. That's how it goes. You can't run a trunk line with 2 people, bud.
So what's your optimum number of people? Because it seems like every time I look at it, there's like 1,000 people in there.
14 to 16 is optimum. But if you're at 14, there's a couple points during the 24-hour cycle where you're going to be crew short. And if you invite 16, you never get 16. You either get 14 or 18, it seems. 18 is too many.
It seems like there's rarely more than 3 or 4 trains on the layout at a time.
Yeah, that's about right.
So why do you need 14 people?
Because you've got to put all that together in staging, and all those locomotives come off and go on to turn. It's the cost you pay for being able to do a trunk line operation in a small basement.
You have to run that
You
one.
have to have people to turn those locomotives.
Oh, just for turning the locomotives.
Yep, that's a big piece of it.
Oh, into the island. Oh, really? Is it?
Yep.
Do you have? So you don't have anybody dedicated to that job of getting locomotives onto the island?
No, I think it adds to the aura where you're responsible for your locomotives from the start of your run until the end. You know, and I think that, you know, having 2-man crews is important too. So even if you got 5 trains moving at once on the railroad, but 3 of them are 2-man crews, anything touching the yard, I like to have a conductor and an engineer. And the short line and the paper plant both get their own jobs. Those are 2-man jobs as well. So you're quickly up to 12 before you look at the dispatcher, the train master, the yard crew. And there's your 16 right there.
Yeah. You should definitely write a book on operations.
That's absolutely down the road. Yes. I'm not sure if it's yet, because Tony's done a couple books recently on operations. So I got to kind of feel that out and see what Eric's idea is for some, you know, for the next couple offerings. But I think that long term, absolutely, I would love to do a book on operations. I think that would be a really compelling work.
I think it would be too. I think you should start on it now and have it well underway as time goes along, because someday you should be, every time something thought occurs to you, you should jot it down. Because
I do that, and actually that goes back to your earlier question about what's the biggest catch, the biggest hang up doing books. And for me, it's making sure that you don't repeat yourself. It's really easy, you know, to find yourself making the same point that you already made 3 chapters earlier in a different way. And you got to be careful that that you're not repeat. I found I probably deleted, 15% of what I wrote on my first read through, going back again, because I was like, oh, I already talked about this. I don't, it's 112 pages. The danger is that you can end up with something that gets a little monotonous.
I know,
and you got to let yourself be able to cut some of that out.
That's like I've talked before. I've got a novel that's almost finished, but my biggest problem is I go back to the start and I start reading it and I start rewriting it again.
Yep.
It's like you got to just leave it and move on.
Yeah, exactly. There's absolutely stuff that if new editions come out of either of these 2 big books, there's definitely stuff I'm going to modify, because I feel the same way. Like, you look at it and you're like, oh, I think I could say it better this way.
Yeah, you should definitely
absolutely.
You should definitely write a book on operations.
I think it'd be exciting. I've already got a good start on pieces of it. That's for sure.
And you've got so many slides and pictures. You could easily do some more self-publishing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's just a question of making time for it. Scanning stuff left and right, it takes a lot of time to do it well.
Well, just let your experts be experts.
Yeah, I haven't found a way to do that in a reasonable manner with slides. It's funny. A lot of photographers, this is a common topic of conversation. And you're right. I mean, there's all sorts of services for scanning slides, but railroad slides have been in slideshows. Some of them are in boxes. Some of them are in trays. So some of them have dust. Some of them don't. How much processing do you do ahead of time? How much cleaning do you do ahead of time? Who's labeling the files? You can have people scan it for you, but you still got to go through and label it. And if you're labeling it and looking up dates and trying to figure it all out, you might as well do that while it's scanning. So then you just might as well do it yourself. And there's no easy way out of slide scanning. It's interesting talking to Otto Von Drack about that too. We got into the conversation at Hoboken about that. He was down at the Hoboken display that we had a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Oh, it was great. It was another great day. That's one that Rich really puts a lot of elbow grease into.
And where's that?
That's at Hoboken Terminal, the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Terminal, currently NJ Transit. And actually, it's a whole sidebar in the yard book as well. So if you want to know about Hoboken and see some classic photos and some modern photos.
I should go to I have to go to other people's Facebook pages to know what to talk to you about, because you don't post enough. There's nowhere posted about your day in Hoboken.
There is on my personal page, which is hence the comment about cross-posting.
Yeah, like, okay, great. It's on your personal. Where should I be looking? That's like
Oh,
the table, the table
problem with
master.
Facebook is it's all got it's what have you done for me lately? Searching on older stuff on Facebook is impossible. It's really frustrating.
Creativity and entertainment is all about what have you done for me lately.
Yep.
Every
100%.
aspect of entertainment, which is what this is, and writing books and putting stuff on Facebook, everything is what have you done for me lately.
But I like to be able to search for stuff that people have done too. That's why I love a searchable blog, or a searchable website that has something by date so you can go back and see what happened.
Blogs. Give me a break.
Yeah. When it's done well, it's done well. Mine's done well. You don't look at it enough.
All right, I'll go look at it.
You wouldn't even know because you don't look at it enough.
I hate blogs. I'm very.
You don't hate my blog.
I'm pretty sure I do.
You do not. You said it last time. I'll admit this isn't too bad.
Well, it's not too bad. Designing and operating books available. Well, it's not too bad, but there's still no easy way to find stuff.
Yeah, there is. There's a whole word cloud on the right.
Okay, so I go to,
or you could do it by date.
So I go to Conrail. I want to know about Conrail hopper cars. So I click on Conrail. Now I got to look at a bazillion articles about Conrail. How do I look for Conrail hopper cars?
Conrail has more than hopper cars.
Well, sure, but I don't want to look at right now. All I want to look at is stuff about Conrail hopper cars. And there's no way to just narrow it down even more. All I can do is look at Conrail. Or
you could look at hopper cars, which I don't think I even have written an article about. So you probably wouldn't want to go to a blog about Conrail hoppers unless you knew the blogger that was writing about Conrail hoppers.
You know what? Blogs are the boil on the butt end of civilization.
Spoken like a true expert.
Yeah. My buddy Steve, the t-shirt guy, he has a heat press, and he's Steve, the t-shirt guy. He's been doing it for 35 years. He's an expert in every aspect of making t-shirts and anything, with a heat press and all that other. And then, he has a thing that makes acrylic signs, and he's an expert in every aspect of it. But sometimes he'll be working the heat press and he'll put something on it and the one letter will be crooked. And I always say the same thing to him. I say, get rid of that thing. Heat presses are a boil on the butt end of human society. Makes no sense, but I like saying it.
That's all right. I think that's good.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
Okay. Can you give out our email address?
I can give out the email address. Our email address is modelerslife@gmail.com.
That's modelers with one L like Conrail.
Not two L's like lumber sales.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I should.
I'm looking at my one of my center beam Hampton lumber sales cars on the layout, so that I got lucky.
I'm looking at all your catchwords, or two L's like Tillotson.
Oh, there you go.
Or two L's like Bill. There, because it's so fun.
Or two L's like Model Railroader.
Here's something on the blog about Facebook. Here's some Facebook articles, and I'll scroll through those endlessly until I find anything that I can.
I know. Facebook, I wish there was a way to search on Facebook.
No, this is on your blog. I clicked on Facebook, and now I'm looking at an endless supply of articles about Facebook that I have no idea what I'm looking for. Here's benchmark.
So you're not looking for anything. You're just looking to complain. And if you're looking to complain, you're always going to find something to complain about, my friend.
Blogs are not easy to use.
I'm just saying.
Blogs are not easy to use. I'm telling you, they're not. They're a blight on the. They're a blight.
They're a different way to do the same thing, but at least they're searchable.
They're a giant.
You can't search a Facebook page.
They're a giant pimple on the chin of humans of the human race. And if you didn't catch our email address, if you go to our website, amodelerslife.com, and scroll down to a picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state, and just click on the picture, boom, the address is already filled in for you. And Dave, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I have.
Well, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad in Independence, Missouri, you know what else is in Independence, Missouri?
I don't.
The Truman Presidential Library.
Oh, very good. That's right, because that's where he's from.
Exactly.
And that's actually Midwest Model Railroad. I didn't put those two things together before, but it's a great hobby shop. I have been there, entirely worth the visit. But you can also go to the website, as I understand, and find a T-shirt.
Yeah, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. I got to get Steve back on the show here again. And you go there and you scroll across their navigation bar to Other and click on the drop-down menu, and boom, you're in a wonderland of AML merchandise. Hats, hoodies, T-shirts, whatever you could possibly need. And in there's a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
No, there you go.
And Dave, have you ever wished there was twice as much podcasting for you to listen to on the old AML network?
Several times it's come across my mind, yes.
Well, if you go to our website also and scroll down a little bit, there'll be a link to a clink.
There'll be a clink too, probably. Just be careful on what you click on.
Yeah, a link to the Patreon channel, and boom, for just a few cents a day, you can have twice as much podcasting every week. Monday is free, and Tuesday is on our paid channel, our supporters channel. It's our supporters channel. All of those guys that join, guys and girls that join Patreon, we greatly appreciate it, and they support that channel, and then we produce twice as much podcasting every week. And if you go to the T-shirt level, boom, every year you get a T-shirt that's only available to Patreon members. And
that's awesome.
And the key to that is it's basically a new game that's sweeping the nation called Hey Dude, Where's My Shirt? Because the guy that's in charge of mailing out the shirts, he's useless. And so yeah, you just go there and boom. And if you like that Patreon channel and you'd like to get more Patreon channel, you can go to Uncle Dave's page. There's a link there too. You can just click on. There's a picture of me and Uncle Dave, and you just click on that, and boom, you're in Uncle Dave's Patreon channel.
I am so pleased to have this link on this website, because the Patreon channel for the OC and the Patreon channel for the A Modeler's Life Network, AML, both of those Patreon channels, I think, offer a interesting glimpse into the back history and the setup and the nitty-gritty of what it takes to make the rest of the stuff tick. And so the OC Patreon channel, your support is appreciated. We have multiple levels as well, including a T-shirt level. And all of those proceeds go towards maintaining the layout and making sure that it's available and accessible online to as many people as possible. So it's a nice way to look behind the scenes and see some of the how-to of how we keep things rocking and rolling on the OC.
And the best thing about Patreon channels is there's no blogs on them. It's just Patreon.
It is just Patreon. That's true.
But I did see how...
And they're searchable, which is nice, like a blog.
But
that's actually a really nice piece of it.
Yeah, and I see how on your blog you did it right at the very top, right under the Conrail banner, is the track plan for the Onondaga cutoff. So that's a huge improvement. That's
super necessary, I think, on any layout website, is to have a track plan, even if it's something you drew yourself.
Yeah.
So that people can get a feeling for what you're talking about. I think that's super, super important.
Okay. We're done. Are you ready?
All right. I'm ready.
So remember, A Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
people that write a book about yards.
And now it's time for the New Jersey Transit Elevator Escalator Report. Whether you want it or not. Take it away, Dave.
Good morning, everybody. Plainfield westbound's out this morning for some door modifications. They're going to adjust some of the equipment hardware that came in yesterday. So that should be back later this afternoon. Ridgewood number 2 is out. Vendors en route to take a look at the doors on that one. Those doors are open. At Woodbridge, we had a report of an ADA customer stuck in the elevator. The vendor went there and found the elevator operating normally, so that's back in service. Newark Penn number 9 is out with a skirt panel replacement project, same as last week. And Secaucus number 2, that's one that's out for its step chain replacement and a lower carriage assembly adjustment. So that's still going to be with a good date there of December 1.
It's another Lincoln Homer.